It's interesting whenever anybody is looking at someone else's experience and wanting to understand creation or attraction by looking at someone else's experience, because it gets complicated because there are so many people who want things that you don't want. And so it's hard for you to accept. Before you came into this physical body, you set forth a series of deliberate intentions. Now, your intentions are, for the most part, what you would call more general in nature. They were emotional. We've been talking about there being this emotional grid. Grid meaning it is the framework for something that we'll fill in later. It is the framework for a vibrational state of beingness that must come to further fruition because the vibrational nature and because of law of attraction says that it must be so. So everything starts with vibration, and then the vibration, as it is managed or held longer, focused upon longer, does cause more to be filled in around it. When you accept that everything is about point of attraction, and that point of attraction is about the vibration frequency that you are offering, and that the longer you offer the frequency, then the more logical it is that things fill in and match that, then everything that you are asking about there and the implied answers that you were putting there makes perfect sense, because nothing is just randomly happening. It is all happening in response to vibration. We want to say to you that all of you, when you came forth into this physical time-space reality, at this time, into this physical time and space, that you all were aware of the evolution of your planet. You all were aware that this planet is evolving and growing. You all were aware that in order for this planet to maintain his perfect balance, that there would be a constant shifting in order to do that. Just the nature of your Earth spinning in its orbit requires constant balance. And the reason it requires constant balance is because there is constant expansion. There is constant movement. There is constant growth. The weight and balance of your planet is always shifting, and your Earth is always righting itself within that because of the larger intentions that have been set forth before. You're really good creators, but the whole bunch of you have not figured out how to scrape enough dirt together to launch another planet into orbit. In other words, you have to accept that there is something really major going on. And what that is non-physical awareness and involvement and assistance in helping everything to move along. So then you say, if there is all this assistance, why would there be something unwanted? Why would people die? Why would there be disasters? And we say, because from the non-physical point of view, from the all-knowing point of view, there is no ending to anything. It's just this ongoing thing. It's just this ongoing life that is presenting itself in many different ways. And so, before any of this conversation can be satisfying, even a little satisfying, or soothing, even a little soothing, you really have to put this thing that physical beings call death or endedness into clear perspective, where there is not any of that. Right. So then when you start looking from the point of view of the exhilaration of life and the eagerness to come forth, and when you understand, and this is the biggest piece, this is the piece that you are really after, and we are really eager to explain to you in a way that is satisfying enough that you will begin to ponder it until your own point of attraction brings you enough evidence of it that you get it. When you come to know that all that has lived before you, we're talking about your parents and their parents and their parents and their parents. We're talking about all of the masters and all of the healers and all of the artists and all of the poets and all of the musicians and all of the scientists and all of the mathematicians and all of the creators who have walked this planet before. When you accept that they are still intimately involved out here on the leading edge with everything that is going on, then you never for a moment feel any loss or lack when someone simply changes their point of focus. In other words, when you're involved in something intimately, when you've come to know people or when you've come to be involved in projects or movements, even if it's something like planting a garden in a field, when you have been involved in that from your physical format and you make your transition into non-physical, your eagerness and attention to and desire for the continuing evolution of that still continues. You see what we're getting at?
Yeah.
So when you put that into perspective, when you understand the longevity longevity of you. You have no idea how old you are. You have no idea how many parties you've partied at and how many dances you've danced at. You have no idea how many concepts you've been thrilled about. You have no idea from your human physical perspective. And so it causes you to look at the death experience, even the mass death experience, as in a situation like the one you're describing. You look at it as loss and lack and something that, if we only could have prevented that. And we say, from your non-physical standpoint, there's a lot of loving humor around that subject as you keep really missing the mark on that one. But what you bring to the forefront in this conversation is how much of who I really am is involved in the creation that I'm about here and now. And we know that makes some of you feel a little weary or a little wary, especially wary and maybe weary, but more wary than weary. It makes you afraid in some cases because you say, Abraham, please don't tell me. Please, please, please don't tell me that my inner being has plans for a dramatic exit for me. Please, 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 please don't tell me that I'm just biding my time. Abraham, I thought you said I am the creator of my own reality. I thought you meant me, here, living happily ever after. I don't want things to change. You don't mean that for a minute. I don't want things to change. You don't mean that for a minute. But I'm happy here. I don't want to croak. I don't want to make my transition. I don't want to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And we want to say to you, there's none of that ever happens. It's always right place, right time. It always is, you see. So if we were standing in your physical shoes, what we would be seeking is an understanding, which means we'd practice it all day, every day, of this emotional grid. We would be aware that our primary work is to achieve vibrational harmony with who we really are. Because when you get in sync with who you really are, when you achieve vibrational alignment with who you really are, then you have the full point of view. In other words, when you sync up with the fullness of all that you are, then all that you have been, all that has lived before you, all that you call ancestry, that we call your backup system, we call it the beginning of that which is you, but there is no separation of the beginning and the middle, and there is no ending of that which is you. So when you find ways to sync up emotionally with that, what begins to happen is every moment of your life experience begins to be one where you're living it with the blending of that fullness of that which you are. And when you are in sync with the blending of that which is the fullness of that which you are, you really feel the rightness of the timing of everything like that, you see. The younger you are, as you're making your transition into non-physical, the more you get that as it is happening. But any of you who have had the benefit or pleasure of being with anyone who's making their transition, you have to know that there is a blending of perspectives that makes all of that. In other words, it makes you recognize that there is a much bigger picture than you were able to see through your physical eyes. We really enjoy visiting with our physical friends who are standing in any moment in some discord to who they really are. Because as the discord softens, as you stop doing that thing you do that is causing the muting or the discording or the covering up of the fullness of who you are, as you discontinue that and you come back into the fullness of who you are, that awareness of the difference between not allowing that full blending and then allowing it must give you awareness of the eternalness of that which is you. And we promise you that as you feel for it more, it will take the sting out of any concern that you have about any of that. We want you to understand that nothing ever goes wrong, because from the broader non-physical point of view, there is always expansion that is happening in the process. And once you accept the eternalness of who you really are, then you'll really understand that in the fullness of that which we are offering it. Right. So what are the deeper questions? The deeper questions are, or the questions that come out of something like that, how can I be in the right place at the right time? How can I keep my family safe? How can we always be intuitively understanding what's coming so that we are following the inspiration that's coming? And the deepest of questions that we feel coming out of something like this, at least, again, it's the question that we want you to ask so that we can give you the answer that we know will be of such benefit to you, is, if I am understanding about attraction, and if I am understanding that attraction is about vibration, And if I am understanding that I can deliberately induce a vibration that matches the vibration of my source, then what will be the outcome of that blending? What will be the outcome of my working to achieve vibrational alignment with the source within me? And the outcome will be that through the path of least resistance, you will move quickly toward the dominant intent that is pulsing within you. So for some, that means continuing this physical life experience. It means being inspired to be in an environment where nothing falls on them. It means being inspired to be in an environment where it is easy for you to maintain your physical countenance. For some, it means reemerging into non-physical. You see what we're getting at?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you catch that? So, can you feel that what that means is, can you feel the advantage to you, therefore, of understanding that your emotion is at the basis of your point of attraction, and that as you are reaching for the emotion first, in other words, rather than trying to create an event that then you have an emotional response to, create an emotional event that then you have a manifestational response to. Do you hear the difference? So as you create an emotional response within you, and that emotional response, therefore, causes you to mesh, merge, blend completely with the dominant intent of who you are from broader non-physical perspective, then can you see that even in deliberate creation that you might find yourself having your release from physical experience through something like that, and that it does not mean you have negatively created.
Correct. Okay.
But the way your question began, it sounded a bit like there was negative creation going on. In other words, you were really trying to explain that event from a framework of believing that something had gone wrong for a whole lot of people.
Correct.
And we want to explain it from the point of view, from an absolute understanding that a whole lot went right for a whole lot of people, you see.
Got it.
And we say that to you in two ways. First of all, there's never, ever, ever anything more delicious than the death experience. So nothing ever, ever, ever goes wrong in what you call the death experience. You call it death, we call it croaking. We try to be as disrespectful as we can. Nothing ever goes wrong with that. But it is the ultimate blending, and it is the ultimate path of least resistance. What do you do about controlling your proximity to earthquakes? What do you do about controlling your proximity to anything? What do you do about creating your own reality? What do you do? What do you do? Do you try to figure out where to go and where to be? Do you read the maps? Do you find out where the fault lines are? Do you get the statistics? Do you look at when the last one happened? Do you try to figure out, well, it's been a while, it's time for another release, better get out of town for a little while? Do you scour your planet? Do you try to find a place that is less likely to have that? Or do you find some emotional state of being that you describe as well-being? Do you work on the way you feel? Do you manage an emotional grid, not just in relationship to that, but in relationship to the source within you? You let your blending be your dominant intent. You want to find alignment with who you are. So you deliberately conjure an emotion of well-being. You deliberately conjure an emotion of friskiness and fun. And you do such a good job of conjuring that and maintaining that becomes your point of attraction. Meaning, by controlling your emotion, you control your grid. And by controlling your grid, it fills in with everything that is a vibrational match. So you become a conscious, deliberate rendezvouser.
Right.
You see, that's what creation always is. You rendezvous. You rendezvous with anything that's active in your vibration. That's really an interesting thing. And as you begin to notice that, as you notice how you were feeling before you rendezvoused with something, wanted or unwanted, then you're able to make that correlation. I'm rendezvousing. Law of attraction is the mechanism that causes the rendezvous, but I am the rendezvouser. And we want you to know that, therefore, if you want to be a conscious rendezvouser, then you've got to be a conscious controller. And we use that word softly. Controller not of circumstances, controller not of events, controller not of others, controller of your emotion. When you decide that you want to feel good, and we think this conversation has gone further in an understanding of why you might want to, not because you're trying to avoid earthquakes, but because under any and all conditions, you want to be blended with the whole of who you are, because it's only under those conditions that you get to live the robustness and the fullness of that which you are.